Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another issue of Hops Geek News, a podcast where each week we recap the latest in pop culture news, and then we discuss comic books, movies, TV shows, and we drink some good beer. Go ahead, find us by searching Hops News on all of your favorite podcasting platforms. You can find us by searching hopsnews.beer. That is our website. That'll take you to our merch. It'll take you to all of our links, as well as going to Twitter and Instagram, Hops Geek News, TikTok, Hops Geek News. We're everywhere and everywhere and everywhere and everywhere. We're like Batman. We are the night, which is what we're talking about today. So we are going to be talking about Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight Trilogy. Man, it's going to be a good one. We have a special guest, our resident Batman expert, who seems to come on our show whenever we're talking some form of Batman. Josh is in the house. We are going to get to him in a second. But as you might know, I've mentioned I am going to Texas for a month to work. So we are pre-recording some episodes for a change. We usually do like a recording weekly release so we can talk about news, but there will be no news for about a month as I don't have the ability to record. So we're going to dive into it here in a second. We're going to start with what we're drinking. Lauren, why don't you kick us off? What are you drinking?
I'm drinking a beer that I've had many times on this podcast, but it's just such a great beer from such a great brewery.
We don't drink beers twice on this show. We're too good.
I wasn't going to do it,
time.
but then you said you were having a tactical, so I had to open another Freedom in a Cage. We keep buying it on accident. It's like that stupid TikTok with the moon, where whatever they accidentally, it's like, that's what happens. We just fall into tactical and grab a 4-pack. But Freedom in a Cage
that brewery is good.
Does go in line with Batman. I mean, he falls in the Bat Cave, and like that's what sparks his freedom and his vengeance. And then in the third movie, he's in the other hole, and it's freedom in a cage, and he can't escape vengeance,
he's in the
and
Russian
he'll never
gulag.
actually be free.
Freedom in a cage.
Freedom in a cage, I feel like can apply to anything, honestly.
Gotham. He's bringing freedom to the cage that is Gotham. I don't know.
Dude, you could say Joker was in the cage and he was still free because he was in control.
Arkham Asylum. Everybody's free in a cage, I guess. I think we're reaching at this point. So I don't know. Anyways, I'm drinking also from Tactical Brewing,
what? Ghost
Blimp, a double New England IPA, double dry hopped with Citra, Galaxy, Ella, A, and Vic's Secret. Whoa, what is Vic's Secret of this hop? Nobody will know. Its ABV is 9%. Oh my God, we're day recording and I'm drinking a 9% beer. Lord help me. Lord help me. But this beer, it has, a Ghost Blimp, and I thought this was perfect actually, because on the can, there are a bunch of silhouettes of people who look like they're old timey, hats, everything pointing up to this blimp and has a ghost face on it. Well, if you remember Batman, the animated series, there are plenty of blimps in that episode, and also Batman's a ghost. So maybe I'm reaching as well. Who knows? But it's a wicked good beer that you sent me that I'm finally getting to have. So
I've drank that one on this podcast before too, just so you know. That one, actually, the story is pretty cool. So one of the brewers of that, or one of the owners of that brewery, they have a podcast called Craft Beer is Dead. And he told the story of the ghost blimp. It's I can't remember what it was, some military thing, basically a blimp that everybody says stop something and then it just vanished like a ghost in the wind. Some kind of story like that. Google it, ghost blimp.
Was
that what killed craft beer?
Oh. The craft beer is dead thing. I think it's a play on the fact that so many breweries sell out.
Well,
that's my theory.
Goose Island
Hey, but Goose Island still makes good beer.
Yeah, I love
They're
their
like one
beer,
of the few big time breweries that actually makes good beer still.
You were owned by the conglomerate, but I respect it.
It's true. Well, that beautiful voice that you hear is my heterosexual life mate, Josh, who is joining us to chat about the Dark Knight Trilogy. I believe we actually saw all but The Dark Knight Rises together in theaters, funny enough. So, Josh, welcome. What are you drinking? And I see you got a tank top on as well. I did not bring my tank top for this episode. Lauren and Josh have tank tops on. Yeah. It's 28 degrees here. Maybe I should change.
I'm rolling with the Beer Zombies Dream. And rule number 8, get you a kick-ass partner. Because they all have like rules, I gather.
So who am I? Am I your Robin or am I your Batman?
No,
or am I your Batgirl, Daddy?
Definitely the... No, you don't have any guns out, so I almost consider you a Two-Face.
Oh, I was going to say Alfred, but okay, I'll take Two-Face.
No, and this one is... A Maryland sour ale brewed with banana, coconut, cinnamon, vanilla, and dark brown sugar.
Oh,
so
that
sounds like a dessert
pretty
in a
good.
can.
That's a lot going on.
I will.
How's it taste? Does it taste like dessert in a can?
It tastes like a well-oiled machine. So it's not like The Dark Knight Rises. It's more like The Dark Knight, where everything merges together perfectly instead of
everything is just perfect.
I can't taste the Marion Cotillard.
I've only had one of their beers, but it was very good. But they're a big hype brewery too. They do a lot of fun stuff.
Mm.
There are a lot of good breweries. I mean, I'm surprised you got your hands on that down there. I need to get back to Vegas and get my hands on a lot of beers.
They've started distributing more so because I've seen them. My first one I ever had, or the only one I've ever had, was in a Hop Culture box where they sent it to me. But I've actually seen them at a local bottle shop here in Orlando.
You know, it's funny enough. I found a new homebrew store. It's called Homebrew Stuff, which is right next to County Line Brewing in Garden City, which is a city within Boise city limits. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me either, but they're amazing. Like, not only do they have a little tap room inside of it with like 18 beers on tap, growler fills, all that, they have a bottle shop. And now we're starting to get a lot of Portland, Oregon breweries distributing here and Seattle breweries distributing here. And I even found a Lone Pine from Portland, Maine, which
nice.
I'm going to break out for one of these episodes. So we're starting to get a lot of stuff here now, which is kind of cool. And on top of that, I was actually eyeballing a $300 new brewing equipment, which I would get murdered for buying. But, you know.
I feel like I need to slide you that for a birthday or something.
Wow, you're a good friend. $300.
Not always. So that's what he buys me more gifts than I do. Gift. He buys me more gifts than I do, so I have to slide up one of those.
I actually buy his friendship. He's literally like my only friend, and I'm just like, hey, please keep being friends with me.
Basically, yeah.
And here we are, like 17 years later.
He even agreed. He goes, yes.
I just yes and most of these things. I yes and.
Yes. Well, let's talk. Let's dive into it. We don't really, reading or watching hasn't really changed. I'm not really going to dive into that because, like I said, this is going to be a different format for our show, a departure of the normal aspects. So let's get right into the goodness. We're going to start with Batman Begins, a 2005 film starring Christian Bale. Where's the trigger? Michael Caine, Katie Holmes, before Tom Cruise made her stop doing movies for a time period, Gary Oldman, Liam Neeson, and Cillian Murphy. So when Batman's parents are killed, billionaire playboy Bruce Wayne decides he's going to go to Asia. Actually, before all that, he goes and threatens Carmine Falcone. And then he gets, like, oh, you think your parents are better than this town? Bang. What about your DA friend? Bang. Didn't think about her. And then he was actually going to kill Joe Chill at the trial. Joe Chill dies. He admits that to Katie Holmes, who is Rachel. They're long lifetime friends. And finders keepers. She slaps him in the face. Emo Bruce Wayne's like, I'm not going back to Princeton, and decides he's going to Asia, where the scene kind of starts off with him in an Asian prison, and he gets into a fight. He's like the white devil or whatever they call him. And he's like, protection. I don't need protection. Protection for them. After he beats up like 15 guys, he's going around stealing. And this is when he meets Henry Ducard, played by none other than Liam Neeson, or is he? And he trains on how to fight evil with the League of Shadows. And from there, he learns about their plan to wipe out Gotham City. And so he decides, no way, Gotham can still be saved. Lauren, what you got?
So in the Arrow show is League of Assassins. Which one is accurate to the comics? League of Shadows or League of Assassins?
It's League of Assassins.
Okay, how do I take my hand down now?
You just click. Let me verify that. You can keep
reading because you're really good at that, and I'll look it up.
Okay. I'm going to edit that part out. Anyways, he decides he's not going to destroy Gotham, that it can be saved. So he fights them, burns down the place, saves Henry Ducard, and goes back to Gotham City, where he decides, hey guys, I'm not actually dead, because everybody thought Bruce Wayne was dead. And comes back in, and he's like, Alfred, we got to do something. What are we going to do? Alfred says, I'm going to become a symbol for this city and fight crime. And so that's where he becomes Batman. We see Batman born. And from then on, Ra's al Ghul is played by Liam Neeson. He's not actually Henry Ducard.
What?
And from then, they're going to go ahead and they're using the Scarecrow, played by Cillian Murphy, to go ahead and poison Gotham's water supply, create fear, and basically reduce Gotham to rubble and ashes and build it from the ground up once more. So, what, Josh, was your opinion? Did you see this like the opening weekend? Because I remember when we were back then in the day, I actually didn't even know this movie was coming out until I saw it at the Base Theater, which was, at that point, the movie had been in theaters for like a month.
In my memory, I did see this opening weekend. I don't have as much of a vivid memory of the theater, but I definitely remember like watching it on DVD and it slowly kind of sinking in like, whoa, like this is a lot more in line with the dark comics. Cause it's one of those where I was introduced to Batman by like the Batman and Robin, Batman Forever.
We were coming off the heels of Nipple Batman, Nipple Suit Batman, and how comic booky all that was. And now it's like this guy, Christopher Nolan's coming onto the scene, and we're getting like a real grounded Batman story.
One for grown-ups, not for kids.
One for grown. Yeah, and I actually think this kind of turned us away from being Batman normies, as it were. Because were you into comics at that time?
Loosely. I wasn't full on, and I had always loved the Batman stuff. But I remember watching this movie and coming out of it, and I was like, Batman, this is the best movie ever. Like, I fell in love hardcore. Batman is my favorite hero after watching this movie and then diving into the comics of his after this, because I was loosely a nerd at this point. We cared more about Allen Iverson and sports and Lil Jon and crunk music at this point in our lives. Let's be honest. It's pretty cringy.
G-Unit. We were big G-Unit.
we definitely.
Oh my gosh, G-Unit.
We were walking around listening to G-Unit, crunk music, and playing baseball in the fields and whatnot, rather than reading comic books. At this point in our life, I'm a freshman in high school at this point.
And it was
I had a 2-year-old and was in law school.
It's like immediately after this, we started murking thugs late at night. Like we were changed men.
We thought we were getting all the girls.
Yeah.
We were not. we were not getting all of the girls. In fact, we were getting none of the girls.
Yes,
so that's kind of where we were at this point in life.
Actually, it's good to start that way so that you knew what to expect.
Humbled beginnings. Yeah. Lauren, when did you first see this movie?
I don't remember if I saw it in theaters. Like I was a full-time student, single mom and working at the time, but I definitely saw it when it was still fairly new, because I always went to the Batman movies, even though I didn't read them. And it was a great cast too. And, Katie Holmes is coming right off Dawson's Creek. I mean, she was still Joey to me in this movie. I'm not going to lie. But no, I remember really liking it, but it was definitely, darker and different. But I hadn't watched these movies in years, so it was fun to rewatch them after having gotten into Arrowverse, because I'm so familiar with a lot of these characters now. Because one of the things DC does that I feel like nips them in the ass a lot, but also makes some of the stuff, more familiar, is they pull out of the comics more directly, and they do more consistent storylines and some of the same storylines compared to Marvel, where Marvel will do whatever the hell they want. They'll reinvent all sorts of things.
This is the storyline now.
Yeah, but I think that makes it more fun for everybody to watch, and it creates more hype over like what's going to happen next. Whereas DC, you're like, well, this happened in the comics, and then it's like, oh, look at that, it's happening on screen. Oh, that happened in Titans, and that happened in Arrow, and that happened in this. But it was fun to rewatch, having more background on all of these. So I did look it up. So you were correct. It is League of Assassins originally in the comics. And so it showed up as League of Shadows in an animated series and in Christopher Nolan's Batman, but it wasn't changed in the comics until 2017 in Detective Comics number 952. So there you go. So the League of Shadows was originally League of Assassins.
I am the League of Shadows. No, but this movie, you're right, though. It was such a departure from it was dark. I mean, literally, like it was dark half the time in this movie.
And what
oh my God, there were times it was like that last season of Game of Thrones, that one episode. It's like, Jesus.
What I will say on this movie is I think its impact was felt more like I don't go back to it nearly as much as the other ones, but I think its impact definitely set the seeds for what we'll get to.
For sure. A lot of people are like, this movie isn't that good, or this movie is just generic. I'm like, no, this movie is even upon revisiting, I feel like it gets better the more I watch it, because of the fact that like, this is the first time. So most Batman movies, Batman stories, what happens? They flash back to Batman's parents getting murdered in a street, and then we jump right into who Batman is. Like
pearls are always important.
Excuse me. We just jump right into Batman is this. This is how he is. He's been fighting crime forever. Commissioner Gordon, he's also established. But no, what this does is it gives us that when he's a kid. And then it also gives us the reason why Batman was like, man, I have to do something. I can't use a gun. I can't fight corruption. I was going to go and shoot this guy because I was mad. You think because your mommy and your daddy got shot? And so it gives us depth to Bruce Wayne, the character. Whereas most of the time we're just seeing him as Batman, whatever. But this actually builds upon the character of Bruce Wayne. So he leaves and we get to see him learning how to become Batman, which is something we don't really get to see a lot of, if at all, hardly ever. We get how he trains. We see how he trains. And it's kind of cool that they bring, Ra's al Ghul in for the first time, because he's a character that one of the best Batman the Animated Series, one of the best comic book, panels is Batman fighting Ra's al Ghul in the desert. There's a really great, sequence where they're fighting with swords and stuff. But I mean, they're very two connected characters. And so what this does is we finally get to see all that. And then we get to see Batman beginning, like he was struggling starting out. And we also get to see a Commissioner Gordon starting as Lieutenant Gordon. And these other corrupt characters, like what, they don't like falafel? And I can quote this movie all day, but it really gives us depth to Bruce Wayne, which we didn't get to see before.
Right. It humanizes him.
And depth to a superhero movie, because it's absurd to think, but Fantastic Four came out the same year as Batman Begins. So you have like
that sort of,
that's right.
That sort of like comic aesthetic, and like this is a couple years after Spider-Man and like Spider-Man 2, and I love those movies, but it's just a completely different take on the it's a shifting of the superhero aesthetic. Like,
it definitely was.
Yeah.
You're right. We got, Spider-Man had come out, we had Spider-Man 2002 at this point. You're right. Fantastic Four. How gimmicky were those?
Yes.
Just to sell toys, right?
And then the X-Men ones have come out too.
Yeah, the X-Men ones.
It's all you need to know.
Yeah, that is very fair. Like Jessica Alba, like she was big, but was she ever a good act? Anyways, that's a whole other conversation for a different time. When the Fantastic Four movies decide to kick back in and come back out, I'm sure we'll touch on that.
When we do our Into
I like
the
her
Blue
honest baby products. All right, do we want some Batman Begins fun facts?
Yeah, go ahead and give us some fun facts before we continue kind of chatting about this a little more.
So Christopher Nolan used the 1982 Blade Runner as a source of inspiration on how to create this universe with no boundaries. He even made the crew watch it before they started making Batman Begins. The script was so heavily guarded that Warner Brothers executives who were responsible for greenlighting the project were not even handed copies of the screenplay to thumb through. Instead, they had to visit...
Hold on. Can we go back to doing that, please?
Yes.
Otherwise, we end up with movies like the Justice League.
Yeah, they actually had to go to Chris Nolan's garage to read it in the presence of Nolan and Goyer.
He's got guns pointed at him like, you shut the fuck up.
They're like, don't look at me. Look that way. Meeting with the production designer also went down in the garage, and a model of the Gotham City was created in there. When they were talking about this, I'm picturing like Bill Gates creating like the computer kind of thing, or like Windows. So some interesting people were considered for Batman. This list included actually the guy who's Cillian, who got cast as Scarecrow. They liked him so much, but they didn't feel like he fit for Batman, so they gave him Scarecrow. Joshua Jackson was considered. I only find that interesting because
Wow.
He's Pacey, and that would have been Pacey and Joey. I mean, who doesn't want that? Henry Cavill, glad that didn't happen. And Jake Gyllenhaal was considered. Good thing that didn't work out.
Josh Hartnett was also considered, and he turned it down.
I love Josh Hartnett. But Jake Gyllenhaal, obviously Maggie wouldn't have replaced Rachel in the second one if Jake Gyllenhaal, because that would have been
spicy.
That would have been some weird Game of Thrones crap right there.
What are you doing, Step Batman?
Okay, so Nolan said Bale had a good combo of dark and light, and that's why he got the role. Bale described the bat suit as, quote, heavy and claustrophobic, end quote. It actually put him in a bad mood when he put it on, which helped him channel Batman, as well as find the I'm Batman voice. And although the Batman voice caused him to lose his voice more than once, he still had to do that. So Nolan wanted this Batman movie to feel more believable, so most of the gadgets he uses were based on real military technology. The Batcave was also real and not green screen. That was the one thing when I was researching all three of these movies. There is not nearly as much CGI as we see today. Like, he did a lot of real stuff.
It was great because we were so used to these closed sets that we were getting in the other Batman movies that were like awful looking, and now they actually are shooting in places like Chicago and Pittsburgh and stuff like that for these movies, and it looks so much better.
Yeah, I mean, you really can tell, especially because when you go back and watch even just like the first Spider-Man, it's like you can tell when it's CGI when he's jumping over the buildings. And because, some of this is almost 20 years old. Okay, so the Batmobile, better known as the Tumbler, in this movie was based on Frank Miller's The Dark Knight. There were not tricks here, though. Wait, what? I don't know what I said there. Okay, it took a year and $150,000 to make this vehicle functional. The tank, as it is described at one point in the movie. And while shooting it in Chicago, a drunk driver ran into it, and he said he thought it was an alien craft. It did not get him out of...
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. So the scene where Bale was asleep and he wakes up to Fox and Alfred... in one of the takes, Christian Bale had actually fallen asleep, and they're like poking him, being like, oh my God, he bloody fell asleep. So when Christian Bale and Liam Neeson were fighting on the frozen lake, they could actually hear the ice cracking beneath them. And the next day, the lake was completely melted. That would have sucked. This movie actually inspired the James Bond franchise to come back, and they decided to bring a little bit more darkness and realism than they had before because this movie inspired them. When Bale was cast, he was only 120 pounds at 6 feet tall. Because did you guys see that movie he was in?
Yeah,
where he had,
it was. Oh,
that movie's crazy.
The Machinist, was it?
It might have been. I remember the plot. I don't remember the name.
Yeah,
it was really
sick. Well, I was about to say, did you guys know? Yeah, well, I was going to say, did you guys know Christian Bale actually became a bat to be in this movie?
If anyone can do it, method acting. No, it's him and Tom Hanks. Those are the only two that could do that, that could pull that off.
A cool Jared Leto before Jared Leto decided to get all weird.
But I mean, you can see the pictures of him. I mean, that's insane. 120 pounds. Like,
oh, yeah.
But he then got up to 220 and was told that he was too big and he had to lose 20 pounds and get more like muscly.
This man can gain weight and lose weight at the drop of a hat.
Must be nice. Yeah. My God.
He's not a fan of it, so I don't think it must be nice. He's flat out said that he does not like that.
It's like, oh, you need plus 100? I got you. Oh, wait, 20 off? Okay, we'll be right back.
Ugh. So Liam Neeson, I thought this one was kind of funny. So Liam Neeson was much taller than the ninjas, so they had to put the ninjas on blocks. And his height was also an issue in Star Wars. Do you remember we talked about when we did one of our episodes?
Yeah.
They had to make some of the entrances like taller because he was like hitting his head on them. He's 6'4". I get it. That's tall. That's how tall Matt is. But that's not like freakishly tall. So why is everybody so surprised at how tall Liam Neeson is?
Why are you so much taller than these ninjas? Like, who cares?
It sounds like something Neeson would have asked for to like stroke his ego. Like, can you please make these people?
It really does.
Make them on stilts so I can't talk to them.
Does he put on his resume he's 5'10" and then he shows up and they're like, whoa.
It's even like funnier the opposite of Tinder where it's like you say that you're 5'10", but
you're really like
you're 6'4". What on earth? Like,
well, it's funny because like in Star Wars of all places too, there's literally aliens and stuff. So why is height an issue? Because I don't get it.
Yeah.
Well, no, he's tall.
I mean, he's not like Shaq tall. I mean, come on.
No, he's really not even all that tall in the grand scheme of things.
He could be a point guard in the NBA. I don't want to hear it, Liam.
He really would.
Luka would dunk all over you.
I feel like 6'4" is the height of like, okay, you're tall, but not, whoa, you're tall.
Yeah.
Like, that's normal tall. Okay, so a lot of big actors, including Michael Caine, didn't know this was a Batman movie at first. And based on the fake title, which was Intimidation Game, Michael Caine thought it was going to be a gangster movie, which it kind of is. And my last fun fact, the little boy near the end that Batman saved was Joffrey.
All my friends at school say you're not real.
You could see the Joffrey in him already.
You really could.
Yeah, he didn't look very
Batman
innocent
tossed
to
him
me.
a periscope. What the fuck am I supposed to do? My parents are literally committing domestic violence, and you give me a periscope?
Yeah, and you meet Batman, and you're trying to dunk on him. Like, oh, my friends in school, like Timmy says, it's like, come on.
Listen here, kid, you don't have any friends.
And that's what I got for Batman Begins.
Well, so I want to know your opinions on the Batmobile, because this is a large departure from the stereotypical Batmobile we see. And personally, this is my favorite live action one that we've gotten so far.
It's more functional. It makes sense.
Especially in the scheme of we're going more realistic. Like, it's literally a tank. It's awesome. I love this thing. It's just barely like that when it's introduced, and that sequence where he's running away from the cops and everything like that, he's just going up between cars. He's running over things.
And they said it really could.
Yeah.
Like, just go over other cars.
It's awesome. The thing is a tank. And one of the funny things though about it is when he's on the highway, all he does is shut his lights off, and then they lose sight of it. Like, something that big you lose sight of on this highway. How?
I know.
Gotham Vision Insurance isn't nearly as good as in our modern
Josh,
world.
what do you think about this Batmobile?
I don't like it as much out of context, but I do like it in context. Like, for this movie, it's perfect. Like, it isn't the sort of thing I would look at and be like, oh, like I love like the Batman Forever, like ridiculous like fire coming out the thing, but
it's all lit up everywhere because nothing says subtlety like being fully lit up.
Exactly. But this one definitely works for like the more realistic approach. And I mean, it's a fucking tank. It's badass.
It is. And I am honestly glad that we don't introduce bat planes and stuff in these movies. I will be honest, because some of those you start getting ridiculous, like the bat sub and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. There's like a certain line where you can't actually make it gritty without it being ridiculous. And he toes that line very well. Very well.
I think we've lost Lauren.
No, I'm here.
Oh, you're frozen. Sorry.
Oh, I was frozen? Oh.
You're still frozen. So that's why I didn't. And there was dead silence.
Wait.
So
Lauren just asked you want to build a snowman.
Do you want to build a snowman?
And then what are your, I want to know, like, what are your guys' favorite scenes from this movie? Lauren, what is one of your favorite scenes from this film?
One of my favorite scenes from this film.
She doesn't even remember.
That's a hard one, especially because I just watched all three of them back to back to back. So it's like I have to remember which one was which.
That's fair. Josh, we'll start. We'll give Lauren a chance to think. Josh, what about you?
I think Liam Neeson chews the scenery in almost any scene he's in, and I love the end scene where he shows up at the party. And Bruce has to give my fake friends, and I can't remember the monologue, but
all you suck-ups, you two-faced, sycophantic suck-ups, just go. Leave
sycophantic?
Whatever it is. Whatever that word is. Sycophantic? I don't know. That is great.
Sycophant.
No, you, Bruce, there's just somebody you absolutely have to meet. Am I saying this right? Mr. Ra's al Ghul?
The American Psycho is real with Bruce in that scene. Like, I could imagine him killing each and every one of those people. But,
I do love all the scenes with Morgan Freeman because it's he's so very much so aware, and he's okay kind of playing innocent, but he still has this very much so like high moral compass.
The
memo? Is there anything you don't love him in?
That's fair. Very true. He's very good as a Lucius Fox, who is a character that we finally get justice for. Like, he's finally seen there, and he's like, this is the only time he's ever in a live action so far. So it's pretty exciting seeing him. There's the thing again. What I love about this movie is the fact that you get to see that Bruce Wayne being that playboy because he has to, and so he buys the hotel and just acts like a dickhead. And then the dinner scene at his house. What are the point of all those push-ups? You can't even lift a bloody log. That was,
When did at what point does Michael Caine actually sign his blood pact? Like, is it on screen where he's just like, Christopher Nolan's like, you will be in anything I do for the rest of your life?
He's literally in every single movie of Christopher Nolan's. So is Cillian Murphy.
Yeah.
Who, in my opinion, I loved him as Scarecrow, and we actually didn't get enough of him as Scarecrow. I feel like there's so much more they could have done instead of making him Ra's al Ghul's punk bitch. Like the first scene. Well, he is. He's just like, he's coming, and he's just gets his own gas on him, and that could have even been freaky. And I like all the things they're doing with the poison. Like when he gasses Batman, he starts seeing stuff, and then when they're in the water supply and he gasses Batman, or he gasses himself because of Batman, he looks like he's like that creature and stuff. That's so badass to me. Like I love that.
Which it shows how much that truly does mess with your mind, because it's like he knows what he's seeing is an illusion. Part of him knows that. But yeah.
And I would say, though, my favorite scene is probably the first scene we see him as Batman. So Falcone and crew are doing the shipment on the docks, and it's like a horror movie. Batman's hunting him down one by one, and he's just like, where are you? And he's here and starts beating the shit out of everybody. That was sick. That was probably my favorite sequence from this movie. Aside from Commissioner Gordon getting to be driving the Batmobile and stuff, that was kind of cool too. So I could probably gush about this film for a while. Do you guys have any final thoughts before we move on to the single greatest comic book movie of all time?
I was going to say Dark Knight, I think is better. So yeah, let's move on to 2008. All right.
2008. Were you guys
still in high school then?
When did this? No, we had just I had graduated.
Yeah, and I was
Josh graduated before.
I was in college.
So because this came out in July, yes.
I cannot say enough about this movie. Like, this is one of the.
We're gonna get there.
Yeah, I hate to even.
We'll do a recap.
Okay, we'll do a recap.
So, if you remember, at the end of Batman Begins, Commissioner Gordon had a calling card from somebody, and it was the Joker. Well, this takes place a year after the events of Batman Begins. Batman, Lieutenant James Gordon, and new District Attorney Harvey Dent successfully begin to round up the criminals that plague Gotham City until a mysterious and sadistic criminal mastermind known as the Joker appears in Gotham. Creating a new wave of chaos, Batman's struggle against the Joker becomes deeply personal, forcing him to confront everything he believes and improve his technology to stop him. And then also we have that love triangle between Bruce Wayne, Harvey Dent, and Rachel Dawes. But this, without a doubt, is the single greatest comic book movie of all time. It is my favorite movie of all time.
Wait, more than Endgame?
Oh my God, by far. I'm going to gush about this.
Talking DC.
Listen, I'm going to gush about this movie for the next at least 30 minutes while we talk about The Dark Knight. So I remember I saw this movie 3 times opening weekend. We went midnight, the midnight release. And that was probably the last time I had a truly great. Now, the Avengers Endgame midnight release was special for a different reason.
What about Spider-Man?
But it was good. But 2008. So 2008. Yeah. Picture this. You couldn't go out and pre-buy your seats. Like you didn't get to go online and pre-select seats. No. So we were at the movie theater at the movie was releasing at midnight. We were there at 8:00 to get seats together because there was a group of us. So the theater is buzzing with people. People are fucking hyped. Everyone's talking to each other in line as you wait in the theater. And what do you think's going to happen? You're with your friends, man. It's like the last great theater memory I have before we went to that, shifted away from that. So
I do miss that.
We were up until 3 a.m. We saw the movie, and then coming out of the theater, everybody was absolutely just buzzing once more. And then I saw it twice more that weekend, and oh my God. Like I said, I'm going to gush. So before we get to Josh, because I'm pretty sure Josh was with me, unless I'm misremembering.
I was not with you for this one.
You weren't with me for that
one? No,
I know I went with my then high school girl. That's right. I had gone with my then girlfriend, Steph.
But I did have a similar experience, but we'll get to that.
We'll get to that. Lauren, when did you see this?
I don't think I saw it in theater. I was dating my now husband. But what's crazy is this came out the same year as Iron Man. But I do again remember seeing it very early on, especially because Heath Ledger had just passed.
Yes. I remember in January of 2008, they announced that he passed. And I was like, what?
So, yeah, I don't know if I saw it in the theater or not, but I know I saw it when it was still new. But you know what? It's hard because like I have more friends that are into it, but I didn't have many friends that were into any of this stuff. It was I had to drag my boyfriend to go see X-Men 3, and then that backfired.
Oh God, that was the worst movie. Yeah.
There's a couple times he looked at me like, really? You made me see this? And I'm like, I'm sorry, Wolverine's in it.
I think this really changed that game. Like ultimately, where now almost everybody I know would go see a comic movie or go see a Batman movie. But
especially in theater.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, because like growing up with the Keaton and the Val Kilmer and George Clooney, it's like, yeah, we saw those, in theater, or if we didn't, we all definitely saw them on repeat on VHS or DVD. But now it's like, that's the only movies I see in theaters are comic book movies. I don't really waste my time with anything else.
Honestly, I mean, you're right. It's funny how the paradigm has kind of shifted. We went from no comic book movies to 8 a year, basically, it feels like.
Oh, yeah, it used to just be Batman. That used to be it. I mean, even the Superman ones weren't many, and it was just Christopher Reeve.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, it's very few, really very far between. Time. We're blessed. We're living in a blessed time. Josh, what was your theater experience, and what do you remember from this?
The thing that will always stick with me, because I think I saw it like 3 times, and I just remember the music for that opening scene, like the whole score.
Oh man.
Hans Zimmer is a master of scores, and this whole fucking movie, I can't like. It just really set the tone. That high pitched, like I don't even know how to describe it. That like
it's like that buzzing, that like
yeah, and I felt like that like really kind of like set the tone, and it was one of like the last like movie experiences I had where it was just like, oh yeah, I feel like I'm like.
Well, it opens up right off the bat.
Yeah,
we're opening up with. It's the Joker. We don't know it at the time, but we see a guy with slick back hair holding the clown mask, and you're like, oh, we're doing this right off the bat. And that opening bank scene was so good. Mm-hmm. And it showed how he played. It set up for how he played everybody. Cause it's like, no,
you had them all kill each other. Genius.
They all kill each other. And then you have, oh man, I forget his name, but he's a very famous actor. He's in the opening sequence. He's like, you and your friends are dead. You know who you're stealing from? And then, no, I killed the bus driver. And it was like, bus driver, that comes up. And then you get that introduction of the Joker where he rips his mask off and you're just like, oh shit. Like Heath Ledger, I know people like to argue who did a better Joker, but there's no argument to me. Like Heath Ledger played a way better Joker than anything Jack Nicholson could ever hope to be. And Jared Leto couldn't even sniff his jockstrap.
Well, they're just such different interpretations. I mean, Joaquin Phoenix did, oh my gosh, an incredibly
Joaquin Phoenix,
different.
First of all, hold on.
I do that all the time. But yeah,
it's
he
not
definitely.
Your fault. It's his parents' fault for names like River and fucking Joaquin. Like, calm down, guys.
Like, what are these names?
I do have a friend who named her daughter Carolina, and I had like an ornament made for her, and I spelled it Carolina with an I, and she's like, oh, we're spelling it with an E, and I'm like, why? She goes, for all you dumb white people. I was like, oh, thanks.
You do not bear the brunt for people making absurd names. Like that's that. If you do something like that, you're gonna spell your name wrong. I'm sorry.
It's true. It's very true.
We all have basic, very easy names. Yeah. Josh, Matt, Lauren.
Yeah.
So it's easy for us to say.
We're a product of our time.
You're a product of our time.
But I mean, it picks up a year later. So we have Batman, and then again, it goes straight from that into another really great scene where the mob and Scarecrow are meeting up, and all of a sudden you see like fake Batman showing up with guns and things like that, which leads to a dope ass introduction of the Tumbler just steamrolling cars and firing stuff off. And then Batman shows up, beats them all down, and jumps onto which first and foremost, Batman probably killed the Scarecrow when he dove down that parking garage and landed on the roof. Like, he probably kills the Scarecrow. Let's be honest.
Batman doesn't kill people.
Well,
and that was like
we're going to get to that a little later also. And it's just from then on, the movie is just it's a 2.5 hour movie. I feel like, but it doesn't feel that it's got so many different things in it. It's almost 3 different movies because we wrap up. We have the Joker storyline, and then we also have the Harvey Dent storyline. And Harvey Dent, you're hanging out with scum like Warts and Ramirez.
Just like everybody's giving their all in every scene, and it's like.
Without a doubt. I mean, Gary Oldman steps it up. Aaron Eckhart steps it up as Harvey Dent, and it's great because you're really getting a really great Harvey Dent where he's actively going after the mob. And then we also get that next scene with the Joker, where the next time we see the Joker is all of the mob bosses are sitting around discussing with Lau about their money and how the marked bills, and in comes Heath Ledger's Joker, chewing every piece of scenery he's in, but in a very, very good way. And he does the pencil trick. And then basically he's like, do you think you just can steal from us? And he's like, yeah, just amazing, dude. Just amazing. I told you, I'm just going to gush for like 30 minutes.
We got Eric Roberts, who like is just like you don't have to cast Eric Roberts in this movie, but in this movie, for whatever reason, they got him like on his full.
You got Jai White.
Yeah, Michael Jai White.
He's in this. Like Michael Jai White's in this. This cast is stacked, even to the low level people. That's like, you really, when you have that sort of depth, that's when a movie sings. I love that scene where Eric Roberts is in the club and his girlfriend's like, oh, can we go somewhere to talk? And he's like, what makes you think I want to hear you talk?
It's just like,
at least he's being honest.
Yeah, it's characterizations. It's like, you don't have to. We see what they are. They show what they are. They don't tell us what they are. We see it.
Yeah. And that's actually one of my favorite Batman sequences in all of these movies. It's just Batman going through a nightclub, beating people up. And then he drops him off the side of a building and breaks his leg. It's like, that is Batman right there.
That is Batman. I would like to say, though, I absolutely love the scene where Batman asks Fox for a new suit because he wants to be able to move his head.
Well, he's like,
gotta be a nod to the 90s.
Is a little 90s, Mr. Wayne.
But you even see, I mean, not as much as like Michael Keaton.
It is very funny.
Yeah, I like that it's become a joke. But I also, Joker, one of the lines that I thought was really interesting, he says, if you're good at something, never do it for free.
So good.
And it's like, how often do people ask you to do something for them because you're good at it? It's like the second I became an attorney, it was like friends I hadn't talked to in years would email me legal questions. Or, somebody would be like, oh, true. Can you paint that? But it's like, it rings true. Yeah. If you're good at something, and yeah, that makes sense. I know he's a villain, but I actually really liked that line.
No, that's a great point too. Cause it's like, I feel like this movie has so many lines that just kind of seep into your vernacular. Like, without even thinking about it, like the "you either die or hero" line, I feel like I hear that all the time.
Right.
Oh yes,
like,
we use it all the time. We still use it.
Yep,
is that from this? Because I didn't even realize that was from this.
You either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. It's at the dinner scene where they're all together.
Common line. Yeah, I know they say it more than once in this, but I thought it was a common line in other comic books and movies and a saying. Or did the saying originate from this movie?
It could have been one of those. It's fluid, probably. I mean,
yeah. But to me, this is like the definitive first time that it came up.
Well, there's so many great lines in it, and you got to think too. One of the great things about the Joker in this is what is one of the best things from comic book Joker is you don't actually know what his origin story is, and they lean into that in this movie when Michael Jai White's like, they bring him in dead or alive. $1 million if you bring him in alive, so I can teach him some manners. And so they bring him in. He's supposedly dead, and then he pops up and tells them about how I got these scars. So you get that iteration, and then at the dinner party you get the next iteration, which we'll get to in a second, because that whole sequence at the dinner party is just so gripping and top notch. And I love how Batman kicks everybody's ass when he goes to Hong Kong, and you get to see him using his detective skills. I mean, the technology that he uses in this film is great. The sonar and all that kind of stuff. It's funny how Lucius Fox knows what he's doing, but he plays dumb. And then you get that dude from Wayne Enterprises who comes in. He's like, oh, don't think I didn't see your baby pancaking streets on late night. And he's like, so you think your boss is out pummeling criminals to a pulp, and your plan is to blackmail him? That was amazing.
So that quote did originate in this movie. See, I love that stuff because that's like stuff like you'll research years later. You know, it's like mind your P's and Q's. Like, you know, that like I love the origination of sayings and like the fact that we have so many pop culture sayings. Like 20 years from now, people are going to be like, I don't know where that came from. Actually, it came from The Dark Knight Rises.
Well, why don't you, before we get into the second half of this movie, go ahead and hit us with your fun facts.
Alrighty then. So this was the first sequel Nolan ever did. Originally, despite that Joker cliffhanger, he was not going to do anything. He was going to leave Batman Begins alone. But the idea of actually making Joker enticed him to do his first sequel. The Dark Knight pulled from Joker's first comic appearance in 1940, The Long Halloween, The Dark Knight, and The Killing Joke. The Joker character himself took quite a lot to develop this specific Joker. So Fritz Lang's The Testament of Dr. Mabuse was used to study how to write supervillains. And as far as like the visual depiction of him, Nolan cited the work of painter Francis Bacon. And if you actually Google that artist, you'll see some artwork and you can see exactly what he's kind of saying. And he said that this is how Joker views the world in a distorted way. And Bacon lived in the late 1500s to the early 1600s. But again, like you look it up and you can kind of just see like this almost like disfigured kind of painting kind of thing. It was actually really cool. So Heath Ledger, to prepare for this, stayed in a hotel for weeks trying different voices and mannerisms to come up with his Joker. He ended up combining Sex Pistols' Johnny Rotten and Sid Vicious and Alex from A Clockwork Orange. And he did keep a Joker diary, which his dad confirmed after he had passed. And apparently he did that for all of his roles. But his dad said he kind of took it up an extra notch when he was doing Joker. So the creepy licking of his lips was a bit of a happy accident. Ledger started doing that because the scar prosthetics actually went into his mouth and they kept coming off. So instead of having to sit 20 minutes in the makeup chair to have them reapplied, he was licking it to try to put it like back on or to keep it in place. And it creepily worked. Bale was insistent that the scene where he stands on the edge of the Sears Tower was not a stunt double, but actually him. So then there's more than one time where it's actually Christian Bale standing on the edge of something. When Joker is wearing the nurse costume, his name tag says Matilda, and that's the name of his daughter, who was 3 when the movie came out. That was cute. Kind of weird, but kind of cute. The guy at Bruce's party who tells Joker they won't be intimidated by thugs was actually a Vermont senator.
Bernie Sanders?
No, it's not Bernie. So he's a big comic book fan and has actually been in 5 different Batman films.
What the hell?
Heath,
that's where our tax dollars are going.
Let me be
really
clear. We will not tolerate.
You remind me.
What is it in this scene? Is it Batman versus Superman? No, maybe it's Justice League when he's sitting next to Holly Hunter when they're like, I guess yelling at Superman.
Oh, that's in Batman v Superman.
Okay. Heath told Bale to actually hit him in the scene in the jail, and like Christian Bale said, he's like, yeah, he really wanted me to like get into it and really be like physically abusive with him. And my last piece of news is I'm going to butcher the last name because I always do. Polka Dot Man, David Dastmalchian. He said that this role actually changed his life. He has a very minor role. I don't even think he talks, but he was an addict at the time.
He says, I don't know, and cries. That's right.
In the back of the ambulance. So he was an addict, and getting to be in this movie really turned his life around. And I mean, since this, we've seen him in Ant-Man, Suicide Squad, Flash, Gotham, and his voice is in many different Marvel and DC stuff.
He's in a lot. Yeah.
Kudos to him. He's awesome. And he's commented on one of your posts on Twitter. So
he has. Awesome. He has. I thought about reaching out to him for this one too, but don't want to be annoying. No. So with this movie, moving on, speaking of the dinner party where we get that, it's Bruce Wayne once again being Bruce Wayne, and Maggie Gyllenhaal, aka Rachel, and they're in a relationship, her and Harvey Dent. And so he throws like a party because he wants to basically stop being Batman so he can be with Rachel at this point. That's his whole goal. And so he's trying to prop Harvey Dent up. And then that's when Joker shows up to the party. He chokes out Harvey Dent. Funnily enough, he just chokes him out. And then Joker shows up, and while he's dragging Harvey Dent away and going to go get into the Batman suit, that's really great stuff where Heath Ledger's just walking around like, have you seen Harvey Dent? Got talking about something little here. And just his mannerisms are so perfect in this scene. And then we get the next story where I actually heard that Maggie Gyllenhaal didn't see Heath Ledger in any of the costume or any of that. Like that was the first time she was on set with him at all in the Joker. And that was to make her, and she was actually terrified. She didn't really know what was going on in that scene. And so like her fear that you see in the sequence is real through filming.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she didn't know. I didn't read this, but I've heard this before, that she didn't know he was going to be like grabbing her face like that. That was kind of unscripted. And that's a creepy ass scene.
The camera's circling the two of them, and he's talking about how his wife fell in debt with the sharks gambling, and he cut his oh man, another great sequence. And then that's the first time Batman shows up and he beats them all. And then he's like, let her go, and poor choice of words, and launches Rachel out of and that was great. And moving on from there, this movie gets really scary at times. I remember dark. I brought my brother. I think he was 9. He was 8 years old at the time. And I took him to see this movie because he wanted to. And that's the scene where it's like Batman needs to give himself up, take his mask off, and he has one of the fake Batman, and he's doing the video and stuff. I'm sorry, backing up real quick.
Oh, yeah.
It's the scene with Harvey, and they're talking to the mayor, and the body falls hanging and hits the window. Like that scared the shit out of my brother at the time. Like it was hilarious.
Are you telling me?
Saw that
Are you telling me he didn't buy that toy from McDonald's or whatever?
Like he jumped so high and he was just looking like terrified at this point. Me, I'm like, this is amazing. Him, he's like 8-year-old him. The poor kid is traumatized from then on.
Which, by the way, as another realistic element, I just love how bad government is in this entire film series.
Oh, they're awful.
Like he's just like, oh, if there was a threat upon my life. I think
you're gonna explain. You're gonna explain why I'm late to dinner with my wife tonight as he's drinking fucking acid. Like that brings in the next sequence is like Joker's telling people are gonna start dying, and then he poisons the mayor, kills the judge, and then or not the mayor, the current commissioner kills the judge, and then this is where basically Harvey Dent gives himself up saying he's Batman. And this leads to a very questionable decision by the police. So they're transporting Harvey Dent and Joker's captive. Batman, or we haven't got there yet. I'm sorry. Joker's chasing down the police brigade, right? Why do they go down instead of just to the other side of the road when the streets are empty, when that fire truck is on fire?
Movie magic?
Like,
because they need to
roadblock.
Flip it over.
Oh, we got to all divert down to lower Fifth. It's like, dude, there's nobody on these streets.
And true, this is probably my favorite scene in the whole movie too. Just from a whole like the actual
it's intense.
It's so intense.
Well, like Joker's chilling in the truck that says slaughter on it is the best medicine. Like that was great.
A little bit of humor in there too. I love it. I love it.
And then this leads me, the Batmobile showing up. We have that annoying guy who's giving us the play-by-play in the passenger seat of the police truck. But this also then brings in, we have Batman shows up, right? And we have that garbage truck driver. He rams into him and smashes him against the roof. And the roof of that garbage truck gets smushed down. You're telling me that garbage man lived? Because I'm 90% sure he got his head caved in this part. For all of you, Batman doesn't kill people. I'm just saying he caves his head in at that point. But then it leads into we have to sell more toys. So the Joker actually shoots and blows up the back of the tumbler, which turns into his motorcycle. And then this chase sequence begins.
And by sell more toys, you're talking about to you, right? Like you're like it's really just selling that more Lego sets. Yeah, and one
one what?
Oh, we froze.
Sorry, my kids had come in, and my kids that came in, like Hank opened up the door, and now everything was mayhem for a second.
And then my computer froze on me for a second there too.
All right, continue. What are you going to say? Oh, he's frozen.
Talking to Josh.
I know. I think Josh is frozen now.
Oh.
Okay.
You're good. I resumed the recording. What were you going to say?
No, I was saying I lost my train of thought on that one when it kept freezing.
Yeah, so we get the chase sequence, and then again, fantastic. This leads into the really amazing interrogation sequence, which the old good cop, bad cop routine, not exactly. And then Batman just smashes it, and it shows something great. Joker's like, you have nothing to do with all of your muscles, basically, as he's beating Joker down, and it shows how helpless Batman is in this situation. And then he purposely gives Harvey and Rachel's locations, but he knew which one they were going to go after, so he purposely does it backwards. And that was, again, Joker is genius in this film. Like, this is the perfect Joker right now because he's just genius. He's always one step ahead.
Like, and where it's truly like the famous Alfred scene where he's just talking about he only wants to sow chaos, but you see that with that sort of little decision making.
But he tries to say he's not one step ahead, that he's kind of just
like,
going
do I really
at
look
it.
like a guy with a plan?
Yeah, and when he has a plan,
you do your makeup every day, so yeah.
Well, everything he does, yes, everything is like, so planned out.
I just rolled out of bed like this. Yeah, it's like, okay.
No, you didn't wake up like that. You put an effort.
Yeah.
This leads to Batman. He saves Harvey. This was actually a really clever way to make Harvey Two-Face, though, is all the gas and everything. Although I can't help but think of all the infection that he's going to get at this. But anyways.
It was still a bit much. I remember that first time I ever saw it and he turned and I felt like it looked cartoony. Almost like when you first, well, like when you see Large Marge for the first time and like the eye popping out and, Pee-wee. So I got those kind of vibes at first. When I rewatched it, it wasn't as cartoony as I remembered, though.
But that's fair. But I thought it was still a really clever way, and I thought it was actually pretty good.
Yeah, but I felt like they should have made it more realistic and less like I can see your whole jaw.
That's fair. I do agree because like I said, at a certain point, it's like, okay, this man's definitely getting some sort of infection going on right now.
Where if like you take a shot, I can see the liquid going down your throat. Like it's a bit.
Oh yeah, so that's This takes us to the point
he's
where
like a ghost.
Yeah,
Joker and him meet in the hospital, and obviously the hospital blows up, and Two-Face is on the loose, and he kills Wirtz. And he's taking the shot, and then he wipes his chin. I'm like, dude, that is so much pain. Like your skin is fresh. Like God. And then again, like he's in that with Maroney in the car, and he's like, "It's your lucky day," but he's not, and he kills the driver. Like, just also he gets away unscathed from that as well somehow. So I feel like at a couple points it was like, all right, come on now. But overall, they did a great job. And then this all comes to a head when we have the Joker in the tower, and he's got the hostages, or actually the bad guys, and he's got the two boats. Everything's, and people are so much panic in the city, and
nobody's listening to Batman.
Nobody,
he's like, don't kill the clowns, they're the hostages.
He was trying to let them know, but like nobody was paying attention because now Harvey Dent has shown that he has Gordon's kids, and then the cops are just doing cop stuff. So it was actually really cool seeing that Batman was taking down cops to save people. I thought that sequence was great. And then again, it comes down to Batman not just being able to fight his way through this with brute strength. He has to use his smarts, and Joker expects people at the end of the day, like, to just kill each other. And then that doesn't pan out. And Batman, no. Do you want to know how I got these scars? No, but I know how I got these. And throws him off the thing.
All right, the fairy stuff.
Schwarzenegger like tagline for it, but I'll let it go.
Tiny Lister was one of the bad guys in this. He was one of the, he's the guy who threw. I should give that to me, and I'll do what you should have done 20 minutes ago.
Yeah,
and it throws it off the boat.
Yeah, and he throws off the boat. So, I mean, just great from there on. And then you think the movie ends there because the Joker's captured. But we go back and we get that final sequence where everything comes unhinged. Harvey shoots Batman, and then this leads to like, Harvey dies after Batman tackles him off the ledge. And it's like, no, I'm the bad guy. Batman becomes the true symbol of the city. And it's just great because Gordon's like, he's the hero we deserve, but not the one we need right now. And that's another really good line from this movie.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie, just perfection. And it's unfortunate that Heath Ledger died because we were going to get him, and I think Harley Quinn is what they were going to introduce into the next film. And so when he died, they weren't really sure what to do. And you can kind of see it with this next movie.
Not kind of see it. You can see it.
Let me pause for 2 seconds. I'm going to hit pause on the recording. I got to pee so bad. So I'm hitting pause. I'll be right back. So this next movie, The Dark Knight Rises. They expect one of us in...
Before we get there, what? I have 2 Joker scenes I want to highlight.
Oh, do it. Final thoughts on The Dark Knight. Final thoughts. Hit us with your final thoughts.
So just in honor of Heath Ledger, I want to honor his acting greatness. And my 2 favorite scenes of his in that movie are, one, when he blows up the hospital and he's doing the makes it look like the button isn't working and then it explodes.
I guess that wasn't planned at all, which is great.
It was just awesome. Awesome. And then my other one is when he sets the money on fire and he's like, it's not about money. It's about sending a message. And it, just like, that's perfect encapsulation of the character. So good.
I did read that the explosion was intentional, how it was, but they didn't tell Heath Ledger that it wasn't going to occur when he wanted it to. So he kept doing what he needed to do. And then that's why he jumped. So I've heard both stories.
I knew at some part there was something that wasn't.
I'll have to find like an interview with somebody to confirm which is which, but I've heard both.
The explosion was planned, but I think there was a delay or something. And then anyways.
So that just was his improvisation. But it either way, it's just acting fucking genius.
I mean, he's just so I can't speak enough about how great he was in this film because he really was. We all fell in love with him when he was singing. What is it? I love you, baby. And if it's quite all right. He was in great. That movie. And then I loved him in A Knight's Tale as well. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That was my first introduction.
What I will say on that too, though, is I think a lot of us didn't.
Was it 10 Things?
I remember going into that movie. A lot of the talk was kind of like, really, Heath Ledger? Like, I don't know that everybody. Had realized that he had that level of like.
Well, I did watch Brokeback Mountain, and the acting in Brokeback Mountain was really good from him and Jake Gyllenhaal. And Michelle Williams plays his wife in that, and she was his wife. Actually, Catwoman's in it too. She plays Jake Gyllenhaal's wife.
Oh yeah! Wait,
look at that! It all comes full circle.
Wait. Okay. Well, do you have any final thoughts, Lauren, before we move in?
This is probably my favorite Batman movie overall. But again, it's hard to compare this one with the other ones with like not Christian Bale ones. It's definitely my favorite of the trilogy, but you cannot compare it to the 90s and the 89 one.
Not at all.
But I would say this is my favorite Batman movie.
And it's just my favorite comic book movie / movie. This is my favorite movie of all time. It just is. But you know what happens when we light a fire, brothers? Fire rises. So we are moving into The Dark Knight Rises now. Oh, man. This is a 2012 film. Tom Hardy is Bane.
And that's where Michelle Williams is now.
And this takes place 8 years after the events of The Dark Knight. It finds Gotham at a time of peace. And this is due to Batman taking the fall for Harvey Dent's murder. However, we have a new evil that has arrived in Gotham City. His name is Bane, and he wants to expose the truth behind who Harvey Dent really was. And now that Wayne Manor has been completely rebuilt, Bruce Wayne, because if you remember in Batman Begins, it goes on fire, whatever. Bruce Wayne has become reclusive. Nobody ever sees him anymore. And now Bane has come, forcing Batman out of retirement. And this also introduces Selina Kyle, who's played by Anne Hathaway. And we don't really know whose side she's on. So I saw this movie. Her side. I graduated basic training a week after this movie came out. And you get like 6 hours to leave the base and go to downtown San Antonio. And I was like, we're going to the Alamo and we're going to the fucking Batman Dark Knight Rises movie. That's where we're going.
Remember both?
Oh, I remembered both. The Alamo is such a disappointment, which that should have set me up for what this movie was going to be because the Alamo is disappointing. And let me preface this. I don't dislike this movie. I just have a lot of problems with it in comparison to being a Batman film, coming off of The Dark Knight, I should say.
So when you were in basic training, do you remember talk of the Aurora shooting? Like, had that come to your purview?
No, because I didn't mind. We saw, so in
that
basic training,
one.
Every Monday or every day we'd have or every so often we'd have a piece of paper that was plastered in our day room.
I guess it was this one. Holy shit.
It was updated news, basically. Like, this is the news. And so I read like there was a movie theater shooting, but I didn't know what the hell had happened. Like, I didn't have a phone for 8 weeks. I didn't have any contact to the outside world.
Wow.
So I didn't really know what happened until I got my phone back and kind of looked into it. And so I had no idea what happened at all.
I remember. This came out the same year as Avengers, and like I remember going to the midnight movies and people fully dressed with masks on, and they did seem to have some leverage with that. With Spider-Man came out, because I saw quite a few people had Spider-Man masks on, but after that, it was like you weren't allowed to come in
can't
costume.
Really wear movie theater anymore.
But it was what they had to like stop marketing too and doing all their PR stuff. They stopped it for a while. And but days after the theater shooting, Christian Bale actually visited some of the survivors in the hospital. So that's cool.
I mean, it is cool, and it's just so fucked up what happened. But let's talk about the good stuff though. What were you guys? When did you guys see this movie?
I saw it opening weekend, and it was one of those like. I think I enjoyed it more in the theater than I have in retrospect. Like, I think it was one of those.
That makes sense.
My
You're kind of
hopes were
seeing
so
it for the
high
first time.
that it was hard to take them away. And then when you really thought about it, you're
coming
like,
off of The Dark Knight. Yeah. I mean, you're getting Bane and Tom Hardy at this point. You're like, oh, this looks great. And then you see the movie. Yeah,
I think it's akin to seeing some of those Star Wars movies where you're just like on such a high level that you're like, I don't really want to break this down.
Okay, but time out. Revenge of the Sith is the best Star Wars movie, in my opinion. But that's neither here nor that's for our Star Wars month. Never mind. That is neither here nor there. Lauren, when did you see this movie?
I definitely did not see this until it came out on DVD because I had a baby the same week it came out.
That'll do it. Yeah. Do they make those?
I probably got it on Redbox, actually. But I was a little too preoccupied trying to get a kid out of me. But what's funny is I've definitely only seen this movie once. And when I rewatched it the other night, I'm like, I don't remember this at all. Like, I remembered Bane, and I remember he took over the whole, island, and they couldn't leave. But like,
one of us in the wreckage, brother.
And I remembered he was in like that prison thing, but I didn't remember jack shit. And when I found out it was the same guy as Venom, I was like, you cannot tell who it is at all.
Yeah.
Nobody cared who I was until I put on the mask.
Well, and to contradict to counteract what we were saying about Liam Neeson, so Tom Hardy had to wear 3-inch lifts to be the same size as Bale, Michael Caine, and Morgan Freeman. Because he looks like a big dude in the movies, but I guess he's 5'9" or 5'10" because they're all 6 foot. So, yeah. Really, height is very important.
Yeah, I didn't realize they put that much effort into it, too, to like negating it. But I guess they...
But when I read that, I'm picturing like Herman Munster, like having to wear the Frankenstein's Munster, yeah. But I mean, it's all right. But it's definitely the least best of the three.
Yes.
So it's the worst of the three.
Well, it's not the worst, but it's also not the best of the three. So
it's the least best of the three.
One thing,
also known as the worst.
When the initial trailer came out, I remember there was a backlash against the volume of Bane's voice. So they had raised it up.
Yes.
And the last time I watched it, I was like, why the hell is this so much louder than the rest of the movie? Like, it's jarring. Like, I feel like Christopher Nolan was like, it's like, you can't hear Bane's voice? Well, I'm going to turn it all the way up now.
Well, that's the one thing with Christopher Nolan is he does not know how to get the sound engineering right. Because Tenet was a big issue as well. Like, his sound is just not quite there.
Well, they did have to go and re-record everything because they couldn't hear him. Like he would say things when they were videoing, and then they had to go back and have him re-record it like a voiceover.
That's true.
Yeah, it's just one of those.
I mean, you can still change those things.
Yeah, it's like every great director has their downfall, and that must be his.
But you had mentioned that Heath Ledger would be in this. Yeah, they wanted to have this be Joker's trial throughout the movie. Yeah.
Which would have been very interesting had that gone. That would have been a very interesting, like, go with the Joker's trial. And I know there were talks of Harley Quinn being involved, but they never really cast her, as far as I know.
Anne Hathaway did think that was a possibility for what she was getting cast for, because she didn't know who she was trying out for.
Well, hit us with your fun facts before we kind of tear this one apart.
So I don't have too many. So the scene where everyone's wearing coats at the football game, it was actually a very hot summer, and the paramedics had to be called just for like heat exhaustion.
It was August, I remember, because I was considering driving from Massachusetts down to Pittsburgh to be an extra in this.
You should have done it.
I should have.
But what's funny is, like, clearly the people were still in good spirits because the announcer had to keep telling the extras to stop hamming it up for the camera. But I thought it was also interesting because when we interviewed the guy who wrote Sharknado, he said when they did Sharknado 3, it was supposed to be summer, but it was actually winter, and they were all freezing and like had to pretend they were hot. And then you know, I mean, I guess you got to film when you got to film because you got deadlines.
Exactly.
So while filming in Pittsburgh, a local man was arrested for attempting to steal an unmarked police car. He claimed that he was an actor and that his only crime was actually stealing a scene from the film. Local newspapers later ran the story with the headline, quote, like Batman, car thief's story does not fly, end quote.
I mean, I think that's a pretty reasonable. If somebody hit me with that defense, I'd be like, all right, you know what?
Jared Leto. He was, what do you call it when you're staying in character?
Method actor. I'm an actor.
He was method acting. Like Trevor Slattery. So the opening scene where the plane falls, they actually dropped a real life plane. And again, I mean, kudos to them. Like, they really did the actual legwork.
The funny part is, like, you're a strong guy. For you, it's that scene always gets confused. What is he talking about? It's so clearly that he's
it'd be extremely painful.
Oh, that's right.
For you.
Everybody's always like, that scene makes no sense, but I think it makes sense. It's painful for the other guy
because he's going to kick the shit out of him.
Yeah.
And you did see on the back of Talia's back, she had the same scar that Bane has because they're both part of the League of Shadows.
God damn it, Batman! Why didn't you notice the back, scar on her back when you're banging her next to your fire?
He even touched it. No, he touched it. He's like rubbing her back in front of the fire.
He knew, and then he ditches her in the middle of the night to go fight Bane and gets his back broken. It's poetry.
That's the first time he's ever touched a girl. I think he was preoccupied. Like
since Rachel.
Did he ever? It was never confirmed he touched Rachel. Okay, I want a clip now of just Bane yelling Rachel and David Tennant yelling Jessica. Rachel, Jessica, Rachel, Jessica.
No, all right. So obviously this starts off, Bane escapes, all that, and he's coming. But like, Batman hasn't been, I see what they're going for, because they're going for the Dark Knight Returns comic book storyline where Batman hasn't been seen in a while. It just doesn't, there's so many other things you could have done with Bane. What I personally don't like about this film is they went too big. Bane threatens nuclear war, takes over the entire city of Gotham, and nobody does a thing for however long, and basically turns it into like a post-apocalyptic world. Like, and then
just Batman's on that island, though.
Yeah, but then Batman's also not even Batman in this film, hardly at all. Like, I get you wanting to do the Nightfall storyline where Bane breaks his back. Like, I was wondering what would break first, your spirit or your body. Smack. And I appreciate all of that, but I feel like they rushed the story and we could have gotten a better one that wasn't such. It didn't feel like a Batman movie. It just felt like another action movie, basically, where the bad guy takes over the city. That's what it felt to me.
With just too many villains tossed in. When you compare it to Batman Begins, where we're talking about poisoning the water supply, or Joker, which just was a lot of like low level crimes in the grand scheme of things.
But
like
it still had a city impact,
a ferry
nonetheless.
Accident, but there was no nuclear.
She's trying to finish her dad's work.
Yeah.
Well, that was the other thing is we have Talia al Ghul. She appears. We don't know it's Talia at the time, but like. It's just so many poor decisions by Batman, who just wants to sign his company off. And then it's nuclear war. And then her death scene was so bad. Like where she dies it was so bad. Marion, like she's such a better actress than her death scene. She just basically
and she was great in Inception. Like she was so great in Inception. She was great. And in this movie, he gives her really the worst death I've ever seen. Like it's probably the worst scene of the franchise.
It was
so you
bad.
mentioned Inception, though, and the one thing I just thought of that I actually did enjoy in this movie was Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and I was disappointed we never got another one.
Why don't you go by your real name, Robin?
I hated that line, but I did like Gordon-Levitt as well.
And then he figures out who Batman is like that easily as well. I didn't mind.
How did more people not figure it out? Come on, like Commissioner Gordon should have known.
I don't know. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like he figures it out pretty easily from the orphanage that Bruce Wayne came to. And it's just like, this was easy. I don't know. I didn't mind him.
No, I think it was the second one though, when the one guy that like worked for him figured it out, and Lucius Fox is like, "You really think anybody's going to believe you?" And then he crashes that Lamborghini to save his life, and he just kind of looks at him. He's like, "Yeah, motherfucker," and then he goes back to being like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, he's like, "Do you think I should go to the hospital?"
Now that you mention it, by the way,
what happened? What's going on?
That is kind of in line with the story you told earlier with when they got hit on the set of Batman Begins. So I wonder if that was on purpose, or like I wonder if that was like a. Remember you were saying like they had somebody had run into the set and
some
just
drunken idiot.
Yeah. I wonder if that was kind of their inspiration.
Not do it. Like here's to that dumbass.
Yeah.
It's yeah. I don't know. I just. Again, we see Batman get absolutely manhandled, which is actually a pretty badass fight scene. And then he gets dumped in that gulag where it's like they get the epic. He basically gets strung up by a rope and that fixes his broken back, which is interesting. And he somehow has cable in this where he gets to watch Gotham City. Like Bane was nice enough to hook him up with the DirecTV package.
Well, only so he can get the local Gotham news.
The local Gotham channel. What Gotham bird did you have my permission to die?
It's the same cable channel that was watching Gotham City and Batman Forever, where like they're watching the fucking circus come to town, and in this one you just watch random.
You're in the gulag.
Live
and then,
streams
and he throws like
Gotham
a rock
City.
at it. It's like, dude, this is literally the only thing anybody can watch.
Yeah.
Don't break the TV.
Exactly, bro. Why are you breaking the TV? This is all we get in this shitty hole.
Yeah.
And then he has to like try to jump, and then he falls with that rope attached to it. Like that's breaking his back.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Like
I just
my
kept
dude,
thinking
you
of
just
Emma
had a
Watson
broken
in that
spine,
scene.
and now you did it again, and now you're broke. Like, come on, man.
Yeah.
He said he had a vertebrae sticking out, and he had to punch it back in.
The old guy, as one does.
Punches his back.
He punches it in, and then he leaves him sitting in like a rope seat. It's like, what?
Yeah. And I think
that was it.
This kind of is exemplary of the movie in general, which is like it has some decent traits, but all we can kind of focus on in comparison are the things that don't make sense that would have made sense in The Dark Knight.
Again, yeah, like I don't hate this movie. I think it's entertaining and I think it's decent, but like for what they were going for, it just didn't land with me. And then we have Batman in this big giant mob brawl. So like you have the gangs of New York fight going down in Gotham City, basically.
Yeah.
And it's broad daylight. And like, I appreciated like that was a cool fight between Bane and Batman. But like, again, I just feel like he wasn't Batman in this film. Like he doesn't do anything that's necessarily Batman-like in this film. Because in the first two movies, he's very detective-like. He's very smooth. He's very cunning and he fights. In this one, he's just basically like, all right, let me put the suit on for 5 seconds and we're done. And I'm dead.
Christian Bale was probably happy with that.
Well, I'm sure he was, but like he flies we get a bat plane in this one. We do get a bat plane in this one.
It's called the Bat.
He flies it and drops the nuke in the middle of the ocean like those poor fish.
Yeah.
I thought the same thing.
Like
all the whales.
They go back to the autopilot. Like he did the autopilot thing where he's obviously alive, and then it ends with Alfred. They're in Italy, and him and Catwoman, and I didn't mind Anne Hathaway as Catwoman, who you actually see Keely,
I like her,
who is in Ted Lasso. Keely from Ted Lasso. That's not her name; she's her real name, but she's in this movie as well. But
She's like her drug addict-y roommate.
Yeah, this movie's just kind of a mess. It is. It's just
but
a mess.
I think the best thing of this was Catwoman and Robin. They were great, both of them.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it was. Again, I don't hate this movie. It's just a mess. Is the easiest way I can put it.
Is it more effective if he dies from getting blown up by the nuke instead of lives somehow? Like in some way.
I feel like it would have been better if he lived and then like you just know Gotham's like protecting you and then they built that statue and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't know though. Maybe.
I think the only way he can be free of Batman is if people truly think he's dead, because to him to be free, Batman needs to be dead.
Yeah.
That's true. Well, yeah, obviously. That's fair. I don't know.
You know.
So what are your favorite scenes then in this film?
I do like
the ones with.
I do like the back.
What do you like? You go first, because mine's going to be bad.
I like the tunnel scene. I like the tunnel scene. Like you were molded by the dark. You merely adopted the dark. Yeah. Like that. I think that is still effective and for what they're going for. I know there are more. There just aren't a ton that I'm like, oh, that was great. I like the football field scene.
Oh, and that's pretty. To be fair, there were a lot of Pittsburgh Steelers, like Hines Ward and crew, were actually in there. It was great.
Like if that wasn't in the trailer, I think I would have been like, "Wow!" But just because I had already seen it, it didn't hit.
Take back your city.
Yeah,
that was the main thing I remember from the trailer was the football scene. Yeah,
the football scene. Yeah.
And he's just the football field. Yeah, that's fair. Lauren, what do you got?
I was just going to say all the scenes with Catwoman and Robin. Those are the best ones.
That's fair.
But for all you Dexter fans, number one, Geek Peek just dropped an episode. Well, actually, this is going to be a few weeks ago. If you like Dexter, go check out Geek Peek. Chris and I from Geek Peek have been rewatching Dexter. But Quinn from Dexter at the very end is the cop that shoots at Robin's feet and doesn't let him and the orphans off the island.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So, yeah. That's all I got. I mean, I loved Anne Hathaway, and she was apparently very, very, very excited when she got the call about Catwoman. And you see, like, she does it well. Like, even the scenes where she just, like, flings her leg around. Like, she's very agile and cat-like and flexible, and she does a great job.
Anne Hathaway in that suit. Yeah, that's my favorite scene.
You and your friends better batten down the hatches. I was battening them down.
Hey.
Were you batting down the hatches?
I was doing something. I was batting something down.
Something. I think we better do something to the hatches.
We better do something.
Well, Batman did.
I guess my favorite scene would be the whole fight sequence where he gets his back broken. That's probably mine. Like, it's really brutal. Like,
both of you guys really liked watching him get the shit kicked out.
Well, it's great because like it's a good brutal fight sequence where it's just heavy hitting. I thought it was great, and one of the few things I loved about this movie. So,
and
do you guys have any final thoughts?
I do enjoy. You've chosen death by exile. Like I enjoy Scarecrow as Judge.
Yeah,
that was
shout out to my boy Cillian Murphy, who's in all three of these movies and doesn't do jack shit in two of them.
He's kind of hanging out.
Christopher Nolan was like, "Hey man, I need you for this film." All right, here we go, and he just is like, "Death by exile," and it's just devolved. So shout out to him once more. Scarecrow not doing a whole lot.
Keep getting them checks.
I can't hate. He gets a speaking role in these movies, so he gets residuals.
I hope the orphanage got their checks again.
Even him getting back from the prison or whatever and ending up right back there like the next day.
Oh, he like fast traveled. Yeah. He fast traveled from that prison. Like, how did he get back from? Yeah, it's anyways. It was. So, Lauren, any final thoughts on this?
Nope.
All right. Well, that was it. That was our Dark Knight trilogy recap. If you guys have thoughts, go ahead. Let us know. DM us. Slide into those DMs, baby. Or just hit us up. Let us know. At us. At me, bitch. And Josh, thanks for joining us once more as we dive into this as our Batman resident expert to come in and chat some shit. Catch us next week. I don't know what's coming next week. I can't remember because, like I said, we pre-recorded some of these things. So enjoy, and we will see you in the fire, brothers.
This has been a Hops News production. You can find Hops News on all your favorite podcasts and social media platforms at Hops News. Cheers.